Hi, this is Tracy from Snazzy Moon Designs. In this video, we will be making a comparison of a tumbler sublimated in an oven compared to a tumbler sublimated in a tumbler press. So let's get started. Okay, so we have two designs printed out. Now I want to say that both these designs were printed on the same paper with the same ink and by the same printer. That way everything is the same. So first I'm going to get these ready by taping them to our tumbler, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and cut our design and tape it onto our tumbler. I like to use this Coral Rotary cutter. That way I don't get any snagging, and it cuts really nice. So I'm going to cut the design down. I like to use 9.4 by 8.2 to start off with, and then I trim it down to match my tumbler. Okay, now obviously this is the way I do mine. I turn my tumbler upside down, turn my design upside down, and then line it up with my tumbler and bring it around. Make sure that you're covering all the edges, top and bottom. I have a little tiny bit of an overlap, and that's just fine, or yeah, overlap just fine down there. Okay, and then I'm going to tape it. Alright, so I got this fancy tape dispenser that cuts the tape for me. I have the link to that below in my description. That didn't work out too well. Let's try it again. Alright. So I like to have a little overlap on my tumblers when I tape them, approximately 1/8 of an inch, between 1/8 and 1/4, closer to 1/8. Just make sure that you're, you're pressing the paper tight and you tape it, kind of like forcing it around a little bit. I usually put one in the middle and then two on each side, just like that. Then I take my tumbler taping stand and set my tumbler down in it like that. Then I run one piece of tape down the seam, just like this. Kind of center it above the seam, have a little bit of overlap at the top, then pull it at the bottom. Don't squish the rest down yet until you get the bottom on there. And then once you get the bottom on there, hold it with your thumb, pull the tape tight, and then just run your thumb down the seam line, which forces the air out of the seam. Fold the top over, just press it down a few times. Then take your thumbnail on the seam that you can see, run your thumbnail down there, turn it around. Then there's another seam you can't see, but you'll be able to feel it. When you find it, run your thumbnail down that seam too. A few times like this. You should be able to see both sides of the seam line. See, this is about 1/8 of an inch seam right here, or overlap. Okay, so once you've got that done, go ahead and finish taping the tumbler. I like to tape the bottom first. I'll take a piece of tape, put a little bit overhanging over the edge, and then stretch it around. Cut it, kind of smush it around, fold the overlap over. I got a glass table, and I like to take it and just kind of use the table to flatten it out a little more, just like that. Then I take another piece of tape, And put one more layer of tape right on the edge. Cut that. Just kind of get all the air out of there. Make sure you don't have any wrinkles. Turn it around, do the top exactly the same way you just did the bottom. I start at the seam every time I put my tape on there. I start at the seam and just that around there like this, keeping the some tight pressure on it. Smooth it out, fold it over. Good. Shouldn't have any wrinkles. And put one more piece of tape over that up to the edge. I've done this so many times, it's just easy for me to do, but after you do this a few times, you'll get the hang of it. Squeeze that out. And that's how I tape my tumblers. Okay, so now I have both of them taped. And the one that we're going to put in the convection oven is going to be shrink wrapped. The one that we're going to put in the tumbler press is not. So I'll go ahead and shrink wrap this, the one that we're going to do in the convection oven. You don't use shrink wrap in a tumbler press because it'll melt. Take your shrink wrap, put it over your tumbler, center it in the shrink wrap, take a heat gun, start shrinking it evenly. Don't get too close, don't get it too hot. Probably about 4 to 6 inches away from it. Just get one end and turn it around, get the other end, and just go back and forth and get the wrinkles out of it. Try not to melt your shrink wrap. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So we are ready to sublimate this one in the tumbler press and sublimate this one in the convection oven. Okay, so we're going to bake our tumbler in this convection oven. We bake ours at 350 degrees for 5.5 minutes. Turn in once, approximately 2.5 minutes. So I have this one ready, shrink wrapped, and ready to put in there. And we place ours sideways in the center of the oven. And we'll let that bake for 2.5 minutes, and then we'll turn it. Okay, so we're approaching our 2.5 minute mark here, so I'm going to rotate the tumbler 180 degrees, and we'll let it go for another 3 minutes, and then we'll take it out. Okay, so we're approaching our 5.5 minute mark. When we reach that time, we're going to take the tumbler out, and we'll cool it down in room temperature water. Alright. Okay, so I cooled the tumbler down with room temperature water, and we can go ahead and unwrap it. See how it looks. Still got a little bit of water left on there. We'll dry it off. Okay, and peel off the shrink wrap. Okay, peel off the tape. I like to peel the tape off and not cut it off. That way I don't get any scratch marks on the tumbler. It's pretty easy to peel off once you just pull on it like that. Okay, this is the one that we baked in the convection oven. Dry it off a little bit. As you can see, that turned out pretty nice. Let's see, this is the seam line right here. Got a little bit of paper on there. The bottom came out nice. Top came out nice.
No ghosting.
No ghosting. Okay, so now we'll prepare the other tumbler in the tumbler press. Okay, so this is the tumbler that we're going to put in the tumbler press. It's taped exactly the same way as the one we put in the oven. Instead of shrink wrap, we're going to put parchment paper around this and tape it. And my press is ready to go. I set it for 360. I'm going to sublimate this for 360 for 45 seconds. And then I will turn it and sublimate it for another 20 seconds. Okay, so I like to see where my seam's at. I can tell by the bottom too. So I'm going to put the seam facing towards the back. And you don't want real heavy pressure because that'll leave tape marks. So I just use light pressure. And we'll start it off. Okay, so we're approaching our first 45 seconds. And when it reaches 45 seconds, we'll take the tumbler and we'll rotate it 180 degrees. Take it, and you can look at the end, rotate it 180 degrees, center it back in your press, and then we'll go for another 20 seconds. Okay, we're approaching our 20 seconds. Go ahead and shut this off. Take this out. Now I'm going to let this one cool down, and after it cools down, we will unwrap it. Okay, so this is cooled down enough for me to unwrap. Again, this is the one that we sublimated in the tumbler press. Go ahead and unwrap it. I used the same taping method on both of them. They both were printed with the same printer with ASUB 125 paper and Hiipoo ink. They were both taped the same way. Same design. Okay, here we go. And there's this one. Looks very nice. I don't see any ghosting. Okay, next we'll compare the two. Okay, so here's our two tumblers. The one on the left was sublimated in the oven. The one on the right was sublimated in a tumbler press. They both came out nice. At closer observation, I think the one on the left that was sublimated in the oven is has a little, I think, slightly darker color to the one on the right. It's not very much, but I can tell a slight difference. Another thing I've noticed is that the one in the tumbler press, if you hold it under a light, you can see very faint tape marks on it. Where the one that was sublimated in the oven, I don't see any tape marks on. Now that may be my fault. I may have had too much pressure on the tumbler press, but that's another reason why I like to use the oven compared to a tumbler press. Yes, a tumbler press is quicker and faster, but in my opinion, I think that the oven, you get better results, especially on darker tumblers. Now, if you've got tumblers like this to make and you want to use a tumbler press, yeah, I think you'll have no problem using a tumbler press. But then when it comes to the darker colors, I've always had trouble with darker tumblers in a tumbler press. But that's our comparison. Hopefully this video was helpful to you, and if you would, like and subscribe, and in the links I have other videos you can watch. Thanks for watching.